You think you've seen brave mothers before, but you've never seen anything like this. In the dead of night, she received a message that would change her life forever. Her daughter was taken, but what she did next will shock you. She did not call the police. She did not wait. She became a weapon, a predator of predators, a mother who crossed every line to save her child. By the end of this video, you'll see secrets they tried to hide, brutal tactics, twisted plans, and a revenge that turns everything you thought about justice upside down. Stay until the very end, because what happened next, nobody could have predicted. The video arrived at exactly 3:15 in the morning, when the city was asleep and the streetlights flickered in the wet, empty streets. At first, it was just a dark frame and the faint hum of a distant fan. Then a voice broke the silence, a voice she would recognize anywhere. "Mom," it said, trembling, almost swallowed by static. The woman froze. Her coffee cup tipped over, spilling cold liquid across the kitchen counter. She dropped the phone. Her heart pounded so hard it seemed to echo in her ears. She had not heard her daughter's voice in days. Not like this, not frantic, scared, calling for her. The camera shifted, revealing a small, dimly lit room she knew as her own daughter's. Yet it was empty. Her daughter's bed, sheets neatly tucked, stood alone under the dim ceiling light. But the child was gone. Her first thought was disbelief. This had to be a prank. Someone was cruel, testing her nerves. But the moment her eyes fell on the old clock on the wall, its hands frozen at 12 o'clock, the disbelief turned into a cold, sinking terror. This was not just a threat, it was a declaration. Her daughter had been taken, and the rules of any conventional rescue did not apply. She had to invent her own. She grabbed her keys, her mind racing. She did not know where to start, but she knew she could not waste another second. The police were the next stop, but as soon as she dialed, she realized she would be on her own. Reports of missing children were frequent in the city, and protocols slow. Evidence took time to process, witnesses were scarce, and her daughter's life could not wait for bureaucracy. The woman moved with the precision of someone who had trained herself for emergencies she never thought she would face. She opened her laptop, scrolling through digital breadcrumbs her daughter might have left. Social media posts, messaging logs, check-ins, old photos, anything that could reveal a pattern, a hint, a direction. Every detail mattered. Every piece of data was a potential key. Her first breakthrough came at 4:28 in the morning. A strange account had commented on one of her daughter's recent posts. An account that had no photos, no friends, nothing. But there was a trace, a cryptic sequence of numbers, like coordinates. She traced them. Her pulse quickened as the coordinates led her to an abandoned warehouse district near the river, a place she had avoided for years. By 5 in the morning, she was on the road, a single mother turned unwilling detective. The city around her was quiet, almost unnervingly so. Rain had started to fall in light, misty sheets, dripping down her windshield. She kept replaying the video in her mind, each mom a scream embedded in her brain. She had never felt fear like this, not for herself, but for the child she had vowed to protect at any cost. The warehouse district was empty, eerie. Buildings loomed like dark sentinels, windows shattered, graffiti marking every surface with the language of those who had abandoned civility. She parked her car 2 blocks away, stepping into the damp night. Her phone illuminated the map coordinates. She walked, every step measured, senses stretched taut like a string ready to snap. Inside the first building, she found nothing but dust, broken chairs, and the echo of her own footsteps. Then she noticed signs, tiny details only a mother would catch. A small hair clip, unmistakably her daughter's, caught on a rusted pipe. Footprints in the wet mud outside the back door, too small for any adult. Panic surged. but she swallowed it. She could not afford to lose control. Every second counted. Hours passed as she traced the trail through abandoned buildings, over puddles, under scaffolding. Then she saw them. A group of men moving with deliberate stealth, voices low, laughing quietly. Her blood ran cold. Her daughter was close. She crouched behind crates, peering through a broken window. There, shackled to a chair, her daughter's eyes were wide with fear, scanning the room for any sign of escape. Her mind worked frantically. She needed a plan, any plan. She could not just rush in, too many of them, too dangerous. But she could not wait either. Every second was another moment her daughter could be harmed. She remembered the pepper spray in her bag, the crowbar in the car, the emergency contacts she had painstakingly programmed. She was not unarmed, but the question gnawed at her. How far was she willing to go? How much of herself could she sacrifice to save her child? The first confrontation was terrifying. One of the men noticed movement outside. She froze. They came closer, and for a moment, she was certain her plan had failed. But then she improvised, tossing a brick into a far corner. The noise drew them away, and she slipped inside. She moved silently, each heartbeat loud in her ears. Every detail, every shadow, every sound was part of her calculation. Finally, she reached the room. The men had moved, distracted, leaving only one standing near the doorway. She acted without thinking, lunging, hitting him with the crowbar she had concealed in her jacket. He went down with a groan. She grabbed her daughter, cutting the ropes binding her wrists. Tears streamed down both their faces. Relief, terror, and adrenaline collided. She held her daughter tight, whispering promises she did not know she had the words for. But the danger was not over. As they moved toward the exit, she heard voices behind them. More men, more threats. She had underestimated them. Her daughter clung to her, frightened but trusting, and she realized she could not just escape. She had to confront them or risk never leaving at all. In the chaos that followed, she improvised, leading the men through the warehouse on a trail she had memorized. Traps she set along the way, loose boards, scattered debris, overturned barrels, bought her seconds she needed. Her lungs burned, her arms ached, but she refused to falter. Every instinct, every ounce of courage, every shred of maternal ferocity drove her forward. By dawn, she and her daughter emerged into the wet streets, gasping for breath. She had no idea if anyone had followed. They ran through the mist, past the silent city, until they reached her car. She locked the doors, clutched her child, and let herself finally tremble. Relief was fleeting, replaced by the realization that their ordeal was far from over. Someone had orchestrated this. Someone still watched. Someone would not stop. Even as the city woke and lights flickered on, she knew the game had changed. She had saved her daughter, yes, but the shadow that had stolen her peace still lingered. And deep down, she understood something she could never ignore. Survival was no longer enough. She had to strike back. The morning sun cut through the haze of the city like a blade, but she barely noticed. Her hands were still trembling from the adrenaline, her mind racing with plans and contingencies. She had saved her daughter, but only temporarily. Whoever had orchestrated the abduction was still out there, watching, waiting, calculating their next move. They returned home, pretending to be normal, though normal had been ripped away. Her daughter clung to her like a lifeline, whispering questions she could not yet answer. "Why did they take me, Mom?" The woman hugged her tighter, unable to lie but unwilling to shatter her innocence. "We'll find out," she said, the words tasting like steel in her mouth. "And we'll make sure it never happens again." She began to dig deeper, tracing every digital footprint, every interaction her daughter had online. every location she had visited in the past 6 months. The more she uncovered, the more horrifying the picture became. This was not a random act. It was methodical, planned, a network of people who specialized in exploiting children, and they had her daughter's face in mind the entire time. Her first decision was the hardest. She could not rely on the police. Every call, every attempt to engage law enforcement revealed the same frustrating delays, the same bureaucratic walls. She realized the system was a cage. If she wanted to protect her child, she would have to break the law herself. And in that realization, something cold and dark awakened inside her. Her preparations began in earnest. She bought surveillance equipment, studied self-defense tactics, memorized every alley, every shadowed corner of the districts where her daughter had been at risk. She trained herself to move silently, to react instinctively, to anticipate danger before it appeared. She transformed into someone she had never thought she could be, driven by a single, unyielding purpose: to confront those who dared harm her child. The first opportunity came quicker than she expected. A tip came through an anonymous message on a burner phone. Her daughter's abduction had been part of a series, a cycle of terror targeting children from families who appeared vulnerable. The message included a location, a warehouse on the edge of the city, known among law enforcement as a hub for organized crime. She knew it was dangerous. She also knew she could not wait. The warehouse was surrounded by surveillance cameras, guards, and what she assumed would be armed men. But she had one advantage: unpredictability. They expected fear. They expected hesitation. She had neither. That night, she approached the building under the cover of darkness. She used the shadows like armor, moving silently, each step calculated, each breath measured. She observed the guards' patterns, the timing of their shifts, the points where cameras had blind spots. This was no longer about rescuing her daughter. This was about sending a message: you cannot take what is mine without consequence. She slipped inside through a side door, crouching behind crates as she surveyed the space. Dozens of men were there, some watching screens, some laughing, some discussing logistics. She counted them quietly, memorizing faces, noting positions. Then she saw her daughter. Her heart lurched, then froze. She was not alone. She was bound, gagged, and under the watchful eye of one of the ringleaders, a man whose eyes burned with cruel satisfaction. The mother's mind raced. She could storm in, use force, risk both their lives. Or she could exploit her knowledge, her cunning, her understanding of human behavior. She chose strategy. She created distractions, set small traps, misled the men with sounds and lights she rigged from materials found in the warehouse. One by one, they were drawn away from her daughter's side, until only the ringleader remained. Confronting him was like stepping into a nightmare she could never wake from. He was strong, confident, expecting to intimidate her with sheer presence. But she had no room for fear. Every word, every movement was a calculated risk. She taunted, distracted, and finally struck, disarming him with a combination of quick reflexes and improvisation. Her daughter was free, yet the victory felt hollow. The other men would return. They had resources, networks, allies, and she had begun to see a disturbing truth. To protect her child, she might have to embrace the very darkness she had always feared. Violence, manipulation, fear, tools she had never imagined using in her life, were now necessary. They escaped into the night, but the chase was far from over. She realized that the men had underestimated her because they assumed maternal instinct was weakness. It was not. It was a weapon. And as she ran with her daughter clinging to her, she felt the first real surge of power she had experienced in years. A terrifying mixture of love, rage, and clarity. The next days were a blur of surveillance, planning, and calculated strikes. She traced financial transactions, monitored communications, and discovered the larger network behind her daughter's abduction. It extended beyond her city, beyond the country even, a sinister organization that preyed on the vulnerable, trading children and terror as commodities. With each new discovery, the moral weight grew heavier. She found herself questioning limits, boundaries she had never imagined crossing. Would she lie to, threaten, or even harm innocents if it meant protecting her child? Each step forward was a negotiation with her own conscience, a balancing act between justice and vengeance. Then came the message that changed everything, a video showing her daughter in a different location, speaking directly to her. "Mom, they're coming back for me," she said. The camera panned, revealing other children, bound and frightened. Her stomach turned. This was no longer about her daughter alone. She had stumbled into a broader nightmare. She knew the next operation would be the most dangerous yet. She could not fight them head-on. There were too many. But she had learned to manipulate, to deceive, to outthink her enemies. She began crafting a plan that would lure the network into a trap, using herself as bait, risking everything to end the cycle of terror once and for all. Every night, as she prepared, she saw her daughter sleeping, oblivious to the full extent of the danger she had faced. She kissed her forehead, whispering apologies she could not voice aloud. She was transforming into someone unrecognizable, yet the transformation was necessary. The woman who had once been cautious, passive, and law-abiding no longer existed. In her place stood a strategist, a warrior, a mother whose love had become a weapon. As the night of the confrontation approached, she rehearsed every scenario. She studied maps, memorized exits, anticipated reactions. She gathered allies of convenience, hackers and insiders, anyone who could provide information or support. Every detail was a thread in a complex web, designed to ensnare the predators who had taken so much from her child. And yet, despite all preparation, a gnawing doubt remained. What if the network was smarter than she anticipated? What if she miscalculated? What if her actions put her daughter in more danger than she had ever faced before? The moral dilemma pressed down on her with crushing weight. Could she sacrifice others, even in the pursuit of justice? Could she cross lines from which there was no return? The night came. Rain fell in thick sheets, obscuring vision and muffling sounds. She moved toward the designated location, heart pounding, adrenaline sharp. Her daughter was with her, hidden in the car, unaware of how close they were to the epicenter of evil. Every step brought them closer to confrontation, closer to danger, closer to a truth that might shatter everything they believed about safety, justice, and survival. The night was thick with rain, the city cloaked in shadows that twisted and shifted like living things. She drove cautiously, her daughter quiet beside her, unaware of the trap being set. The network's location was marked on her map, coordinates she had memorized down to the last streetlight, the last alley. Every instinct screamed caution. Every fiber of her being demanded speed. Tonight, she would confront them, end the cycle, or fall trying. The warehouse loomed ahead, massive and ominous, walls blackened with years of neglect. She parked a block away, listening to the rain drum on the roof of her car. She could hear faint shouts, the metallic clanging of chains, the soft murmur of voices. Her daughter stirred, sensing tension but not danger. She swallowed the lump in her throat and whispered reassurances she barely felt herself. She moved like a shadow, slipping through gaps, scaling walls, avoiding cameras. Every detail had been planned, yet the unpredictability of human behavior always made her nervous. The moment she entered, the air was thick with the smell of damp concrete and fear. Children huddled in corners, eyes wide, watching her approach. Among them, her daughter's gaze met hers, a mixture of relief and terror. She acted fast, gathering the children, directing them silently toward a back exit she had scouted. But then, the ringleader appeared, flanked by his men. He smiled, a slow, cruel curl of the lips. "You've done well to come this far," he said, "but you do not understand the rules of this game." Her heart pounded. She had anticipated confrontation, but not the calm arrogance in his voice, not the ease with which he controlled the room. The children trembled, some whimpering, some frozen in fear. She held her daughter close, whispering a promise that she would not fail. The trap she had set, a network of alarms, lights, and distractions, was activated. Chaos erupted. Men shouted, children screamed, rainwater and spilled objects slicked the floor. She moved through the turmoil with precision, guiding her daughter and the other children toward freedom. Each step was a calculated risk. Each misstep could cost lives. Then she saw him, the mastermind, the one orchestrating every abduction, every moment of terror. He was taller than she remembered, his presence overwhelming, and he laughed at her defiance. "You think you can save them all?" he said, voice calm, almost amused. "You think you can undo what has been done?" Her mind raced. The moral boundaries she had questioned before shattered completely. She realized the truth. To save her child, she might have to destroy everything, to embrace darkness fully, to become what she had once feared. She lunged, using every ounce of strength and cunning, every lesson learned over weeks of planning and fear. The confrontation was brutal. Objects flew, men shouted, children screamed. She fought with desperation, fueled by love and rage, striking down anyone who threatened her child. Blood and sweat mixed with the rain, every movement a testament to maternal fury. She rescued the last child, dragging them through the chaos toward the exit she had prepared. As they neared the final door, she saw it, a hallway lined with mirrors. And in those mirrors, she saw not only the men, but herself. The woman she had become, hardened, merciless, capable of acts she never imagined. Her reflection stared back at her, and for a moment, she almost faltered. Could she cross the line completely? Could she become someone her daughter would one day fear? The mastermind appeared at the end of the hallway. He raised his hands, not in surrender, but in mockery. "You're not a hero," he said. "You're something else, and soon you'll see what you've become." Then came the final shock. He pressed a button hidden under the table, and the mirrors around her shimmered, revealing screens. On each screen were images, videos, children taken from other families, lives ruined, and her daughter, smiling and unharmed. The realization hit her like a hammer. This was a test, a trap within a trap. The mastermind had known she would come, had manipulated every move, every decision. And then she saw the truth about the last child she had saved. A small, subtle mark on their wrist, identical to her daughter's. The network had planted a duplicate, a decoy, to draw her in completely. Her heart stopped. She had been following shadows, illusions, while the real threat remained closer than she realized. The mastermind stepped closer, eyes gleaming. "Your love is your weakness, and yet it is also your strength. You've destroyed everything in your path, and for what? A lesson." His words cut deeper than any blow. "You cannot save them all, and now you will know true despair." Her mind spun. Every plan she had made, every trap she had set, every calculated risk, it had led her here, to the brink of total collapse. She realized she had been manipulated into becoming a weapon, a force of destruction that even she could not fully control. And in that moment, she understood the final horror. The mastermind had designed her transformation, had forced her to embrace darkness, not to save her child, but to prove a point. Her daughter's eyes met hers across the room, unaware of the duplicity, unaware of the manipulation. Relief and terror collided in her chest. She had the choice: confront the mastermind fully, risking everything, or retreat and leave the network alive, knowing they would strike again. She chose the confrontation. With a final, desperate surge of courage and rage, she lunged, striking the mastermind down, using his own traps against him. The mirrors shattered, alarms blared, and the building seemed to collapse around her. She scooped up her daughter, running through the debris and chaos, feeling the weight of every life affected by this network pressing on her conscience. When they emerged into the rain-soaked streets, breathless and trembling, she thought it was over. The children were safe, the mastermind defeated, or so she believed. But as they reached the car, her phone buzzed. A new video, another voice, chillingly familiar, whispered, "Mom, the game is not over. It's only begun." Her heart stopped. She looked down at her daughter, whose face was innocent and trusting, and she realized the terrifying truth. She had survived, but the network had survived too. And now she was not just a mother, she was a weapon. And the weapon had been sharpened on her own love. She gripped the steering wheel, hands shaking, and drove into the night, knowing that nothing would ever be the same. Her daughter slept beside her, unaware of the full extent of the danger, unaware that the world she had saved her from had already reshaped her mother completely. And somewhere, in the shadows, the network watched, waiting for the next move.